Harvey, please tell us about the mixed economy of foster care. At the moment we have about roughly a third of children looked after in foster care are looked after in the independent sector. Is that the right proportion?
When a child comes into care and a local authority social worker thinks that a foster care placement is the best place for that child to be, in the first instance they look at their own local authority in-house service, as we call it, which are the foster carers who work directly for the local authority. So they will try to find the child a foster carer who meets their needs in-house. If they can't try and find that, they will then look out to the independent and voluntary sector to see if they can provide a foster care for that child. So local authorities have a system where they sequentially search for the placement for the child. In-house first, always. Every local authority in England does that. Then they go out to the independent sector. With the independent sector, they use significant levels of procurement and commissioning to sift through what sequential order they're going to search through those providers. That's largely done on the basis of a very rough idea of unit cost. So in both of across the piece here, children's individual needs are nowhere near as primary in my view as they should be. Now, some people would describe that as a mixed economy. I don't think it is, because what we've got essentially is a preferred provider of an in-house fostering service, which local authorities always go to first. The reason they do that, in my view, is because their economic model means if they fill that service up as much as they can, and excuse the language, because fill's not a very nice thing to say about children and human beings, if they fill that service up first, that will be the most economically efficient way of providing that. And of course, that has to be a huge concern for them. Tough times, spending public money wisely. But I don't think that's necessarily best for every child. What children need is the best possible placement for them, the best possible foster care for them that individually meets their needs. And you can't do that by always relying on one service in the first instance, in my view. That might be fine for a lot of children, might even be fine for most children, but it certainly will not be fine for every child. Then when they go to the external services, the independent providers, their procurement means they sequentially look through them by looking at the cheapest first. Foster care independent providers are very heavily pressed on the price they charge, and as a result local authorities will reward those who are the least expensive or the cheapest, depending on your view, by offering the referrals to them first, by and large. They have tiers, if you like, which gives them a sequential order. Now, all of that I've described doesn't seem to me to have huge amounts to do with meeting the needs of individual children. And not only is that our moral obligation, if you like, but it also seems to me that there's an economic argument for it. Because if you place a child with a foster carer who only just about meets their needs and it isn't great, I'm not saying it's a disaster. I'm not saying you're deliberately trying to do the wrong thing by the child at all. I don't think that at all. I think by and large our social care professionals really try and do the best they can for children in difficult circumstances. But if you're really selling that child a little bit short on what they're getting out of it, that will soon cost you more money. That foster care will need extra support, extra respite care. Worst case scenario, the placement breaks down, the child has to move somewhere else. That's a disaster for that child. Sets them back a long way. There've been estimates that may cost £8,000 or £9,000 in terms of the work that goes around it. So I'd argue that using in-house first and price as a way of deciding where you place children actually doesn't make economic sense either. I think it quite quickly comes back to bite you. Now, all of that is described as a mixed economy. To me, a true mixed economy would be, in our local authority area, we've got our own carers, you've got some carers from this charity, you've got some carers from this private provider. Okay, that's our workforce, if you like, within our borough. What we'll do is we'll think across the piece about how we best meet the needs of the children that are coming into care with that whole workforce. When we talk about workforce development, when we talk about future-proofing, that's the scenario we'll be looking at. But that's not the way it works at the moment. So the mixed economy that we've got at the moment doesn't really meet the needs of children as well as it could do, neither does it spend the money as wisely as it could do.